applications at all. It was for, the spacecraft propulsion and uh, different ways of flying. And, Ken was, I wouldn't say he was against the airplane business because he seemed to love airplanes and helicopters, but he wrote a little paper that you can download that really kind of attacks the business of airplanes and just airplanes in general, and was focused on more of a personal air transportation system. But in addition to that, he had his own flying devices, as you're well aware.
Yeah.
The vehicle is powered by free piston compressors and little itty bitty spinning blades. So there was certainly a diverse array of flying machines that he was excited by and focused on.
He was a hang glider enthusiast. Yeah, that was his
Oh, I
hobby.
didn't know that.
He liked
Oh,
to launch, and I think the last place where he had his lab, there was a nice hill we could actually launch from. So that
that's
was
cool.
no, he his dream was propulsion, right?
Mhm.
And that's what his quest was. Uh, so as far as I know, we got the mechanism of propelling, but no steering. It would just
Ah,
be whatever. All right. I suppose you could steer it by external fields, but that's the extent that my knowledge of
yeah.
how far he got. Uh, and he says it's really fundamental. And of course, the transmutation from the strikes that was huge because it proves a paradigm shift in nuclear science. And
Yeah.
so definitely not popular, but that's where Bob Greenyer and the Russians, their ball lightning and transmutation conferences. So there's a real disconnect between Western science and what they're willing to look at, and how far the Russians have proceeded ahead on this effect. Because in a way, it's the proof. The ash never goes away. The craters don't go away. The unusual isotopes not readily found in nature can be studied again and again. And so it really had to, so the bird in hand type of proof that once you make a crater from the strikes, you have your proof that you're outside of the standard paradigm of this, or at least the Western standard physics. And of course, the Russians have taken off on new theories of the nucleus and things like that. I'm lucky to have Bob Greenyer help us translate what they're thinking. They're way advanced on their modeling and they have much more complexity on their modeling than the simplistic vortex ring, just a single vortex ring. They have the fractal nature of structure and fractal natures of making filaments, vortex filaments, and then spinning those into a higher order filament. And so you can see a mechanism of fractal structure. And Bob Greenyer's all excited about that. And so he gave me a dump at the conference, this last Tesla conference. I said, whoa, they are way, way advanced. It's just isn't their thinking. Well, I'm not sure. Well, how do you know it's all right and everything else? It's just the modeling. But I sure know Bob Greenyer was excited about it. So I guess the fundamental question I have no idea on the quote secret space program. That kind on how far we're advanced. Do we have UFO propulsion and navigation? The other question is like Sala brought me thinking of that. Do we have help? Do we actually have contact? We get accelerated along, but of course, if the technology is gifted to us, then we're obviously restricted on what we can do with it. So having a secret space program idea may be true, but we're really teamed up with them, and thus we're restricted on what can be done and what can be discovered. So it's kind of puzzling. I don't know, when I hear disclosures, I see a contradiction between, oh, I'm disclosing the secret space program stuff. And I says, well, if you're on a real classified project, you're not supposed to be
Right.
talking about it. So I see a contradiction. So I personally don't know what's real or what's not real. So I have no idea how far we advanced. Maybe Chris certainly knows where humans are at with their technology versus versus uh, uh, alien stuff. It's just you see, you can understand my contradiction. Okay,
Yeah,
we're still stuck on the
well,
airplanes and everything else. We have the charging, like the Townsend Brown effect. We can charge the wing of the B-2 bomber and cut down the friction, et cetera, from ion propulsion. That's still standard science. But to get into warping the space-time metric and creating propulsion, and then anything going into hyperspace, right, is I would say that's beyond our technology. But I have no idea because it went classified, I think, in the 80s, right, with the Ronald Reagan program, the Star Wars program. Even they wanted to classify the toroid, the plasmoids that Ken was working on. He knew they were about to, and he told me the story of how he uh, foiled them, so to speak,
right.
because he worked with the. Let me tell you the
Yes.
same story. No, I'll let you tell the story, Chris, because I've been talking too much right now. Go ahead and
Well,
I'll
you
tag
know,
team you, right?
no, I'm delighted that you're speaking as much as you are. It's great, and I want to hear more. But with respect to the story that Ken told me, is that they had packaged basically his principles and his primary patent for power generation for charge plus whatever his primary patent. They put it in a book, and they mailed the book. He published his own book and about 50 copies and sent it off to the four corners of the world to the various universities that were of value, and that foiled the patent system.
And so is that Evie, A Tale of Discovery, Chris, that book that you're talking about that Ken Childers wrote?
Well, it could be. I'd have to check the title, but that's the basic story that he
Okay.
explained to keep his what 53-page patent from being classified. So
Yeah. And thankfully he did that
yeah.
basically because we wouldn't really be talking about him
Right.
with you right now
Mhm.
had he not done that, right? So that's very, very important for everyone to understand. Um, the secret space program, I could probably talk more about that than Chris can because I actually know Dr. Sala. I knew Dr.
Wow.
Robert Wood. I also know Ryan Wood. He was actually in this group. I also know Frank Chili. Frank Chili knew Tompkins the best. He actually brought him out and to the public basically and put him on the Jeff Rent show, the same show that I was on. Frank did tell me something very interesting about Tompkins. Frank went to Tompkins' funeral, and 2 days after Tompkins' funeral, Tompkins texted Frank twice. Now, I asked Frank to see the texts, and he never did share them with me. But basically, the moral of the story here is that Tompkins used some of his age regression technology or drugs to age regression back and keep him alive, essentially. So this is something that I even there's a YouTube where we talk about this because Lacey, you remember Lacey actually, she did that fourth interview. She actually talked to Frank Chili personally about all of this, and she talks about it on this one, William Tompkins #2 that we did, and even we even revealed the drug company that actually is doing this as well too. So there's that. There is a secret space program. I've done tons and tons of research on it, and the Pius patents sort of come out of there, but not really, because I know Paul Laviolette's opinion of the Pius patents because I talked to him before he died about it, and I also know Chris's opinion about the Pius patents because of all the information that you've shared with you and David Wilcock through the years with me on that. And I don't think that you're using the Pius patents for any of the technology that you're doing. It's all Ken Shoulders patents, is it not, Chris? For
Well, it's
anti-gravity and
kind of a combination of things. And if you look at some of the different patents where you really get into a lot of what I've done, we focused on plasmas and really plasma stealth technology and having multi-hulled aircraft. So you
double
have an
hull. Yep.
aircraft with an outer skin and an inner skin, and in between you have a plasma, and that gets into some actual classified work that started long before I started Stavati. I mean, the reason Stavati exists is because of what happened with the multi-role fighter program, and
Okay.
basically we had a program that ended up getting canceled in under the Clinton administration, and they created the F-35 program, the Joint Strike Fighter, which came out of three other initiatives. Well, the result, in my opinion, was really not a very capable aircraft. And today the F-35 is, being sold internationally.
Yeah.
And but it's really more of a 1970s, 1980s approach that merged a lot of components from a Russian Yak-141
Wow.
design
No way.
philosophy. And it just wasn't very innovative. And so, our focus was an aircraft that really could be in production for the next 100 years and be a leading fighter. Well, the advantage of that is now we can produce the original concept in a new package and actually sell it as a next generation replacement for the F-35. So what it boils down to is we could have had the airplane that could replace the F-35 in 1995, but
Wow.
instead we went back to pretty standard tech. And the F-35 has some strong challenges, and they've been identified over the last 20 years.
Yeah.
And so you could almost say that on the public side, our technology has been restrained by at least 30 years. We're 30 years behind in the public. And I'm talking about the military public. I'm talking if you're in the military and you're working on a B-21 or an F-22 or even an F-47, all those airplanes are 30 years behind where we could be.
Wow.
And so it's just a sad state of affairs. And that doesn't even get into any more advanced technology. This is just baseline of what we could have done for the future starting in, say, 1992 versus the pathway that we took. And the pathway that we took is very, one, it's very brute force, but it also, they're talking about fifth and sixth generation aircraft. Well, most of the airplanes that you see that are advertised as sixth just aren't. They're still using the same approach to stealth technology we had in the 1980s. So that's really a kind of a different mode. And when you get into advanced spacecraft, I'm glad that the Pius patents came out. I mean, there's no question of that.
Yeah.
But there's so many different approaches to, say, controlled nuclear fusion, high temperature fusion and low temperature fusion alike, that are viable. And
Right.
instead of pursuing them, and it's just like what Morey was saying about the nature of Western science, there are significant academic opposition for the advancement of different approaches and different theories of how the universe is put together on a fundamental level. And it's even in the classified world, that's not explored very much. And it's kind of sad. And many of the people who were working on the more exotic technologies in the classified world, they're in their 80s now. Many of them have just passed away. And so there's a real challenge that we're facing of who is going to continue the legacy of advanced technology work.